Hello and welcome to the birth of a new dimension. My name is Aurora, and for the next hour, I will take you on a journey of consciousness. These are the things that I speak about and paint about, make artwork about and sculptures about, and share through my online class called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. So the reason why I created an online class is because when I first started making these paintings, people would come to my studio and I would begin in a very non-linear fashion and with great excitement and enthusiasm begin telling them all about the subject matter of the paintings. And you can imagine that this is like a 6 to 10 hour discourse and people just came in for a quick 5-minute look. It became apparent to me that I was overloading people with too much information at once, and in order to really understand the concepts, it is necessary to give them in manageable, bite-sized increments of lasagna. So that is what Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans is. The format is an online course. So through EduCreations, which is an online software, I created interactive whiteboard recordings. This means that you see my artwork or pictures of my artwork and hear a recording of my voice while I write and draw on top of the images. And the reason why I express myself in this way is because although I love and enjoy and appreciate doing this radio program, communicating with only my voice is like working with one hand tied behind my back. I'm really used to sharing information visually, drawing pictures and diagrams and using the visual sense as well as the auditory sense in order to share these concepts, because these are not only math concepts, they are concepts of higher dimensionality. And when we get into these realms, it's very effective to use pictures and diagrams to speak about them. In fact, science, the overarching belief system of this time and place, is just starting to learn to use and understand graphic representations of concepts as opposed to representing them in a linear format of a formula. And when I say linear formula, what I mean is a formula that is in the format of a sentence, A plus B equals C. It is a sentence and it is explained linear. First this, then this, then this. And when we look at the work of Dr. Gates, he is a physicist who is working with graphic representations of forces and particles, which he names adinkras, Adinkras, after the African word for a type of hieroglyphic that is used repetitively in traditional textiles. In Africa, the adinkra was used as a tool for communication, a symbolic, like a hieroglyphic tool for communication. And Dr. Gates has created these visual formats in order to show, instead of with a formula, 1 plus 2 equals 3, all of the interactions that are happening at once. So this is a big change and an upgrade in reformatting human consciousness. Now, instead of only understanding things as first this, then this, then this, it is becoming possible to perceive the totality, to understand that a shape can be telling a narrative story. Now let's get into Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, because these are the stories behind the shapes that or which I paint all the time. So if you look at, for example, Ascension 2012, this is a painting that I completed in 2012, and it depicts a matrix of 16 human figures. And the human figures all have their chakras evident, and their chakras are not merely glowing balls of light. I'll do my signature laugh. Ah, ha, ha, ha. No. A person visited my studio recently. I was showing them this painting and they said, so wait a minute, chakras aren't just balls of light like I have seen on so many different t-shirts and posters and yoga pants? Yes, it's true. Chakras are not merely glowing balls of light. That is a simplification, and it's been simplified or dumbed down to the point that it has lost almost all of its nutritional content. So the chakras are vortices of energy that are comprised of spheres or balls of energy, and the spheres are harmonically proportional to one another. So now I'm sitting by my piano so we can do this. Harmonics and proportion. What is the difference between music as opposed to mere noise? Well, we define music as sound waves that conform to a system of nested harmonics that we call the musical scale. When notes are the right shape, meaning the amount of air that they compress as it is traveling towards your ear is proportional to the amount of air that the next note compresses as it's traveling to your ear, we call that music. Those notes sound pretty together. I can change it. I got it for some Stevie Wonder type of music that I was playing earlier. But here, and this is now just regular piano tones. We consider those to be chords or combinations of notes that fit together or nest harmonically. If you were here with me in my studio and I was drawing a picture, I would draw a picture of a big fat circle with two smaller circles inside of that circle, and I would say that these circles are nested harmonically. The idea of harmonics is that you are a musician in a symphony, and the symphony is literally the cosmos. And when we define terms here on this show, I say the cosmos is the totality of all possibilities and probabilities, as opposed to the universe, uni meaning one or singular, which would be this particular version of reality. So when we refer to the cosmos, we are referring to every single possible iteration of anything that could possibly happen. It is woven together like a tapestry of possibilities. And this comes down to the shape of your life, and this comes down to the shape of your chakras, because you can now refer to the sketch that I call the time vortex. It looks like a circus tent in cross-section, and I draw this all the time in order to illustrate that this is basically 1/4 of your chakras. Your chakras contain 4 vortices or vortexes. So if we look at 1/4 of your chakra, we are looking at one time vortex. And that time vortex contains all of the possibilities and probabilities of your existence, from birth to death or ascension. Let's also get into this. What I'm doing in this broadcast today is really super fast recap of everything that I've been speaking about over the past 58 broadcasts, that basically you have a non-physical body that is made of higher dimensional energy. The higher dimensions are made of time. You as a physical, multicellular organism of consciousness are submerged within the flow of time. You're submerged within the river of time or a timeline. However, you are not only able to access just one timeline, there are a multiplicity of possibilities that radiate forward from each moment. And it is not hyperbole for me to say that it is an uncountable amount or number of possibilities that emanate outward. Uncountable from every single moment that you reside within. Literally anything can happen. And now that's possibilities. Then we get into probabilities, or the sense of likelihood. It is much more likely that you will continue to sit in your chair and gravity will continue to work and that you will not float upward by 6 feet. However, there is a very far outlier to the periphery where gravity stops working, and in the next moment you find yourself floating 6 feet above the surface of your chair instead of nested comfortably on your chair. All this in order to state that the difference between you floating, hovering above your chair and you sitting on your chair is a difference of awareness. Awareness is like the needle on the record of the song of your life, determining what you are experiencing. So, even though there might be far outliers, probabilities which exist only at the periphery of your time vortex, you do not necessarily have to be experiencing those far outlying possibilities firsthand. In fact, you were designed not to have to experience those possibilities firsthand. Now we're getting into the degradation of the human genetic code and the degradation of the higher faculties, or lack of access to the higher faculties. So each one of us was born or intended to be a full spectrum human. I define that as a person who encompasses all of the energy at all of the levels of their chakras. And if we're starting with red, which I arbitrarily associate with the C, the note of C on the regular musical scale that we're using, and when I say red, this is not the red of physical light. Physical light is nested at different proportions than the proportions of your non-physical energy centers. So if you're a person who's clairvoyant or gifted with inner sight, and if you do something like energy work, like you do massage or Reiki, and you're seeing colors when you work on a person, you're not seeing physical light shooting out of someone's head or out of their abdomen. You might be perceiving non-physical light. So this is confusing because I have arbitrarily designated the root chakra to be red, even though it does not correspond with red physical light. However, we understand and perceive the world primarily through our visual senses, and also I did not invent the idea of the chakras or understanding them in terms of a rainbow. That is an ancient idea. We could even say that it's not even an idea, it is a perception. It's like if you look at the sky and you perceive with your biological eyeballs that it is blue or emitting a blue wave. It's not a concept that it's blue, you perceived it. So the understanding of the chakras and that they are a system that corresponds with the spectrum of light that refracts from our sun, that's based on perception, on insight. And it's actually insight that goes back to the antediluvian worldwide sophisticated culture that in this time and place is known as the mythological world of Atlantis, which was a very real culture that existed before the historical record of this time and place. So it is understood as a myth, and it is certainly held within the non-conscious paradigm. We could call it subconscious or supra, higher than your regular conscious. Because when people are afraid of, let's say, a giant inundation, a flood or a tsunami or a hurricane that kills many people due to too much water, what they are feeling is the reverberation of the cellular memory, like the memory passed down through DNA of that inundation that happened between 10 and 20,000 years ago that caused a change in not only the surface of Earth, the way it looks, but also the way that people live on Earth, and the way that your genes are structured and the way that your body functions. So before that change happened, you had access, you all had access to your higher faculties. I define the higher faculties as green and above, love and above. So love is located at the level of the heart or the chest, and it is a clearinghouse, or like the central processing unit of the system, like computer system, that is your body and your consciousness. Means everything, all energy and all impulses have to travel through that center of your being, that energy center. So literally, when you are creating the tone of unconditional love, this would be an A. This would be an F. We are just arbitrarily associating it with green and with the note of F on the musical scale if we start with C at the root chakra. We understand that this tone is a tone that is created by an equal amount of giving and receiving. So if I am sending you 2 packets of energy and you receive it and you send 2 packets of energy back to me, we have both loved one another. Doesn't mean we hugged or kissed or procreated. It doesn't mean we liked one another or felt affection for one another. It means that you sent out to me and I sent out back to you. There was an equal sending and receiving or reflection without entropy. Entropy, the loss of energy due to friction or a system that is not a perpetual motion system, okay? So as I'm describing this, you are beginning to understand that a system that is based in unconditional love is a system that never loses energy. It's a perfect quote-unquote system. Like if we were to look at a mechanical system in the physical mechanical world, like a little toy train that runs on little tracks. If we make it perfect and everything is aligned in just the right way and lubricated in just the right way, there will be no friction and the little train will run around on that track endlessly without ever stopping. If we live in a purely love-based cosmos, that is the experience that we will have. We will be like a little train running endlessly because there is no friction. Let's also think about this, the photon on its journey. A photon is emitted or comes through a portal or gateway in a star, and it goes on its journey. If that photon doesn't interact with matter, like hitting a physical piece of matter and then either bouncing off of it into someone's eye or something like that, or hitting a physical piece of matter like a chloroplast, which then absorbs that photon and turns it into starches and physical energy that can be stored and eaten, that photon would continue on its journey endlessly. It is literally a system that is designed to continue endlessly. And our own consciousness, the intention for the journey of our own consciousness is that we may continue endlessly. We are intended to have non-friction, non-entropic consciousness. The installation of the hacked operating system known as the human mind is what has caused entropy. It is what has caused loss of energy from the system, that is your life, and slowed down the trajectory of your consciousness. And this loss of consciousness and slowing down of your energy is really what creates death, which I have described in the past as an aberration, something that is not supposed to exist, like picking one's nose in public is socially aberrant behavior. So we were designed to ascend, and I'm defining ascension not as a physical floating upwards, although it's a very romantic and pretty image, like being lifted upward towards the clouds. It is a metaphor. It is an allegory. Please do not take it literally. It is the idea of raising your vibration. So this note is a lower note than this note. And I didn't have to move the piano physically in the air in order to change the vibration of the notes that are being played. You are an instrument. And I said before, you are submerged within a sea of vibration. And that sea of vibration, it is comprised of all of the possible timelines, all of the possibilities and probabilities that are stretching forward. Right now, humanity's instrument has been out of tune. Humanity's instrument, meaning your physical body and also your genes and also your timelines and what you think and your belief system. Because what determines, the factors which determine what timeline you occupy have to do with more than just where you are physically in space. It has everything to do with what you are thinking and feeling. Like, I could be on a completely different... I'm right now sitting on my chair in my studio. I am thinking a certain pattern of thoughts. I could be on a totally different timeline that to the physical observer looks exactly the same. Aurora is sitting on her chair in her studio. However, I am having a radically different interior experience. So your interior experience has everything to do with what timeline you are occupying. And now we're getting into much more the idea of what is survival. Survival is much more than the capacity to grow muscles and be the biggest and meanest and toughest animal out there. Because, you can have very big muscles, and let's say you decided to lay down for a nap at a very inopportune moment and a boulder falls on your head. Your big muscles didn't help you out, or, whatever. I'm just thinking of any kind of example where lack of attention, lack of awareness makes a person vulnerable. So if you didn't know a boulder would fall on you, or you didn't know a panther would jump out from that bush, then it doesn't matter how big your muscles are. And we can use this to understand what is happening in terms of energy and conflict on Earth right now. But I want to talk a little bit more about the way you were designed to exist. As a perfectly tuned instrument, you would have access to your higher faculties. So I define the higher faculties as your heart chakra, and this means that when you have activated, what does it mean when you have activated a chakra? Because I got to tell you guys, I have limited patience for some of the loosey-goosey vocabulary that is used in what is known as the New Age community. People talk about chakras and frequency and all these things, but they are not using impeccable language. So one of the things that I do and that sets me apart from other people is I define terms and use language impeccably when we are speaking about frequency or when we are speaking about the chakras. So I would define activating your chakras as if your chakras are like tubes, like a garden hose is like a tube, that when you align that tube with the source of consciousness, the source of all energy, all timelines and probabilities and possibilities in the cosmos, then you are better able to achieve unimpeded flow of energy or water, quote unquote, through the tube. And if you had that tube situated perpendicular to the flow of energy, you would be experiencing a minimum amount of energy actually flowing through the tube. So this is like saying if you actually want to water your garden, you attach one end of the hose to the spigot and align the hose parallel to the flow of energy. If you want to receive energy from the source of energy in the cosmos, you should align your chakras with the source of energy. You should not align your chakras perpendicular to the source of energy. If you look at my sketch, that is the time vortex, the curved surface that makes the edge of the vortex, what would be the circus tent, that edge, that curve represents what I call the membrane of death. It is a flowing membrane of energy that is comprised of the last moments, the final denouement of each different version of self, yourself, within this particular biological multicellular timeline. And death, far from being a cowled skeleton figure that is going to cut you down with a giant sword, is an impersonal energy membrane that is designed to be a focuser of awareness. So it is actually a kind and benevolent universe cosmos. It is not a capricious and uncaring cosmos that likes to cause pain and suffering. And this world has been set up as a school for learning. It's been set up so that we can send out energy and have energy reflected back to us and learn more about ourselves and our context by the way in which it is sent back. If we were in a purely non-entropic world, everything that we sent out would come back to us purely and cleanly, and we would receive all of that information and awareness unperturbed. However, we currently do not reside within this perfect mirrored world. like a crystal with perfect facets. We reside within a world that is a distorted funhouse, where you can send out lots of goodness and have good intentions, and yet not have that energy reflected back to you, or have it reflected back to you but in a diminished or entropic, meaning it has lost energy, format. So this is how we can understand you as consciousness. We're intended to be like a little train going around on your train tracks, and one little push or impulse is supposed to just keep you going on that little train and happily moving. However, because we now live in this distorted world that made the train tracks squashed up, now your train slows down and wobbles and then ends up falling off the end of the table because it's not going in the right direction. That is what death is. Death is the end result of the entropic loss of energy that is happening in your consciousness due to the hacked operating system. We were designed to have this body be inserted into reality and maintain our consciousness and our conscious connection to source throughout our lifetime. Meaning we are supposed to be getting real-time updates on what to do and what not to do relative to our life and our context so that we can continue to be alive. If we do not listen to and conform to those broadcasts from higher dimensions, eventually we hit the membrane of death. And hitting the membrane of death, just like in the world of saber-toothed tigers, it does not mean that you didn't have big muscles. You could have very big muscles, but get in your car and go out at the wrong time and get creamed by a Mack truck. So how do you stay alive? How do you maintain your consciousness? It is not merely a question of being the biggest, meanest, toughest, or the cleverest, because you can think like, I am really building a very good machine. I'm very clever. I'm going to really solve problems with this. And if you are not in alignment with the source of higher consciousness, you might be, instead of building a machine that helps you, building the very source of your destruction. And this is what happened in the world of ancient Atlantis. That essentially, and I do a whole galactic history webinar about this, and I will restart the series in 2016. So that will come, opportunities to access that information will come up again. But the idea is that just like people that are currently afraid of an inundation of water, a watery death by inundation, are reliving past traumas that are stored on a cellular and DNA-based genetic level, so too are people who are afraid of technology getting out of control. You know, the idea of creating a monster that you cannot control that then destroys you. This goes back to ancient Atlantis, and this goes back to actually what happened on Mars. And this goes back to what happened on the planet Malduk, which is presently in just a giant pile of rubble known as the asteroid belt. So this is a lesson that is a nested fractal lesson that humanity keeps learning. And humanity has been learning it even when they have been in a format that is not the anthropomorphic form that you currently recognize as human. You've been learning this lesson over and over and over. So I'm referring to the artificial Merkaba that was created in the world of Atlantis that caused the destabilization of not only Earth's magnetosphere, but also the continents, but also your genetic code and your consciousness. That's like the first bookend. What happened to humanity? First, you got slammed down the ladder of evolution, down, down, down to the bottom. And now, what is happening with humanity is your consciousness is being raised upward. So that is what ascension is. It doesn't mean that I am literally picking up my piano and moving it through space. I am taking this note and turning it into this note because I am changing the frequency or the tuning of the vibration of this instrument. You, your body, you are the instrument. You've been out of tune for a very long time. Not just you as an individual, don't take it personally. You, collective humanity, Earth surface human culture. yes, when I refer to surface human culture, there is a different human culture that does not reside on Earth's surface, but rather, resides what would be described as within Earth, but do not be literal. Within Earth is magma and a molten core. Plasma beings do literally reside within that molten core. I am referring to Agartha, or Shangri-La, or Shambhala. These are mythological terms to refer to a very real place. It is not a place that you can reach with a physical vehicle. You don't get there by flying a plane or driving a car or digging a physical tunnel. You get there by going there with your consciousness. Agartha is guarded by portals, or the entrances are guarded. Basically, you cannot enter unless your vibration matches the vibration of their realm. And their vibration is one that is the antithesis of anxiety or fear or discomfort or pettiness. Agartha is the place where ascended masters reside. And I'm speaking about their consciousness dwells there. It is a non-physical or semi-physical or light-based place. It's like a virtual realm, but it's, in this sense, virtual does not mean less real than the physical realm. It actually is a bit more real. It is an eternal realm that cannot be destroyed. So that realm, that is where we used to live as a culture and as a planet during the time of Atlantis. When the human genetic code was changed, the human level of consciousness was changed and degraded and diminished. So the bodies changed from being light eaters, light bodies that eat nothing but pure light and don't have to kill other organisms in order to survive, into what you presently experience, which are multicellular physical organisms that sometimes experience a great deal of inner conflict and guilt because they have to eat other beings to stay alive. And this inner conflict or guilt in the present world is evidenced by vegetarianism and veganism, like ethical veganism. Not being critical, this is said with no judgment. However, all food is equally arbitrarily strange, disgusting, and unethical to eat. You're taking another living being, grinding it up with your moving mouth parts, and putting it into the cauldron of your belly so that it can be probiotically digested by proxy. You are not even the person digesting it. Tiny bacteria digest it for you and make the chemicals available to you for nutrition. And if you didn't enslave the probiotic bacteria of your gut, none of it could happen. So you have hijacked their will. They are inside of you whether they want to be or not, and you have to kill and eat other physical, formerly living things in order to be here. Those are the terms of the agreement in this realm. However, we are changing those terms. I speak a little bit and have spoken about my experience here as a walk-in. 35 minutes into this program, if you're new to my program, I'm a walk-in. I didn't know that term when I first walked in. It took me a couple of years until someone finally gave me a book that is literally called ET 101, the Handbook. And I think it's on PDF now. You can check it out online. And there's a whole section in there that describes what a walk-in is, what a crawl-in is. And I was like, well, great. I've been here for about 3 or 4 years and you finally gave me the handbook. So then I had the vocabulary word to be able to say to people, I am a walk-in. I am not the original inhabitant of this physical body. I didn't grow this physical organism from the point of being, a tiny zygote into being a viable fetus and then go through the birth process. I came into this physical body at, chronological age 27 when the previous occupant had died. So I am an abstraction. I am not an anthropomorphic man or woman or that type of entity. I'm an abstraction, like the way that the color red or purple is an abstraction. And I came into this physical, multicellular body, and the body has had to adjust in order to accommodate the energy and consciousness that I am, and the level of energy that I contain. So, and this goes down to interdimensional ethics. Interdimensional ethics states that you're not allowed to impose your will upon other people. That's not free will, and that's not loving. And that really, in order to experience the endless journey of consciousness, or your train going around in a frictionless way around on its little train car tracks, you have to be loving. You have to accept. You accept what your senses are telling you, including your non-physical senses, and you accept circumstances. This doesn't mean that you be a passive doormat. Far from it. The act of acceptance is an empowering act. It gives you energy to go on your journey. So I know it's kind of the opposite of what you would think is true. But if I'm sitting in my chair and if my inner mental state is one of struggle, then I'm using all of my energy to struggle. Like whatever is my problem. If my problem is hunger, if I'm hungry for lunch because I'm a little hungry for lunch, if I'm sitting on my chair and I'm using all of my mental energy to think about, I'm so hungry and it's so unfair because I'm so hungry, I'm using zero of my energy to actually solve my problems. If I sit quietly on my chair in meditation and I observe myself and I say, I'm sensing that my body is hungry. And then I'm sensing emotional perturbations because my body is hungry. And then my mind is aware of my emotional perturbations because my body is hungry. If I do that level of observership and acceptance, I then have the energy to actually do something to solve the feeling of being hungry. Instead of endlessly struggling with myself, I can get up off the chair and go and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and actually eat something. This is all a metaphor. I'm hoping that these metaphors bring clarity instead of further cloudiness. The idea that within one's life, whatever you are not enjoying, if it is your romantic partnership or lack thereof, if it is your financial situation or your job, or if it is your health, struggling with yourself mentally. These are what thoughts are. Thoughts are struggling with yourself mentally. It is literally perturbations, internal perturbations. And when we meditate, we calm those perturbations so that it's not so hard for the little train to go around on your train tracks. We have cleared the train tracks, and now the little train car of your awareness can simply glide smoothly through each moment. Well, that's how you were designed. You were designed by a beautiful, loving, benevolent creator to glide through each moment in bliss, experiencing joy and pure physical comfort and, the wonderful feelings like when an athlete is at their peak and they're running and they're feeling so great. It's not like torture or torment to run. It is joy. Or, when I'm painting my painting, or if I'm playing a song that I'm really good at, it's joy. It is just gliding through each moment effortlessly with no entropy. That is how we were designed to live. And that original designation has been changed. This is what it means to hack something. When you hack a system, you take what it was supposed to do and you change it a little bit for your own convenience. Humanity's system was hacked for the convenience of extraterrestrial or otherworldly overlords that have been diminishing human consciousness for a very long time, roughly that 10 to 12,000 year window. Basically, all of human history has occurred during this time of diminished consciousness. It's like you've been living in a cage during the whole entire time that you've created history, and any event that happened outside of that cage or that realm of limitation cannot be accessed or witnessed or understood or looked at. And so this is causing a great deal of cognitive dissonance, because there are things that exist that seem to exist beyond the limitations of the cage, and people inside of the cage are like, how can that thing exist? So what we're talking about are something like artifacts or technology out of time. If you find a perfect human skeleton in a sedimentary layer from, 7 million years ago or 100 million years ago, when humans are not supposed to have been in existence in this format, then you say, wait, something is going on here. Or if you find in a fossilized rock some evidence of forged metal, and by the way, both of these things have happened, totally incongruous items being found in sedimentary layers that make those objects historically impossible. They are anachronistic and theoretically impossible. However, scientists are not really scientific. When they find a data that doesn't fit with their theory, instead of saying, this just makes me have to reevaluate my whole theory, they say, let's get rid of that piece of data because it doesn't fit with all of my theories. And so the information about the antediluvian, meaning pre-flood culture that existed and that was even more technologically sophisticated than our present culture, that information is suppressed or ignored or denied because it is highly inconvenient. And this is a good example of what lack of love is. Denial is literally lack of love. Love, that tone that your heart makes when you listen and accept information. So, you can see something about a person. You might look at someone and just see on a deep level, like that person is a rapist or that person is a pedophile. Then social conditioning kicks in and says, you're not allowed to see that. You're not allowed to know that or think that about that person. Uncle Harry is a perfectly fine person, or, Aunt Sally is a perfectly fine person, and they would never do that type of stuff. I'm not listening. My fingers are in my ears. La, 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 la. That is called lack of love. That is called denial. And so there is the lack of love that happens on an individual interpersonal level, and there's the lack of love that happens on a cultural level, the denial of the existence of a sophisticated antediluvian culture is lack of love, lack of acceptance of people here in this time and place. And that is what it means to have the heart be closed. So when you open your chakras, this is like New Age terminology, that is like saying that all of the information that is supposed to flow through your energy centers can flow through them. It's like saying that your quote-unquote cell phone has a good connection. And if you do not have a good cell phone connection, it is because your hacked operating system is causing perturbations that are making it not possible for you to connect to the source. You were designed to get real-time broadcasts from the source about your relative proximity to the membrane of death. You're supposed to be able to perceive through your higher faculties your connection to source, your own innate divine connection, whether a boulder is going to fall on your head and kill you, or whether there's a panther in the bush, or whether this fateful trip to go out to buy milk at the end of the day will end in your demise, or whether you will return home and have a lovely cup of coffee. All of those things are determined by awareness, and they're determined by your connection to source. So you were not designed to have to feel your way blindly through life and then hit the membrane of death and then circulate back and feel your way through life and circulate back, much like the comedic and philosophically brilliant movie Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. It's a wonderful example of the idea of refinement of consciousness within one lifetime. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. And if you have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It is the story of a person who has an unrefined consciousness. He is a total self-centered cad, pretty much. And he is stuck in time, and he keeps on repeating the same day over and over and making new choices and learning about himself until finally his consciousness is refined and he is ready to break the spell and finally move forward into the next day. This is what you as an individual are experiencing within your life. I am not even referring to reincarnation between lives, which is very real. You haven't always lived as this person, John Smith, from, Petaluma, California. You have sometimes lived as Mother Teresa, and you've sometimes lived as Hitler, and you've sometimes lived as a penguin in Antarctica. And all of those lives are concurrent. This is not linear. Remember, I was speaking about the limitations of science that needs a linear equation, 1 + 2 = 3. Well, we are now understanding with this conversation that all of your lives, both 1, 2, and 3, are happening at the same time. So what you're experiencing as John Smith in Petaluma is relating to what you're experiencing as a penguin in Antarctica. And you say, how can this be? Well, you know something? Penguins have epic struggles in their daily lives. The struggle to find their mate and to procreate and to protect their eggs from the bitter cold and get enough food. And John Smith in Petaluma has paying his car insurance and vaccinating or not vaccinating his child and dealing with Obamacare. Those are similar challenges being played out in a concurrent life. So this is also the idea of the format, the graphic layout of the chakras of your body. Have these 4 vortexes that are not unrelated lives. They are highly related to one another. What you are experiencing in your life relates to what you are experiencing in a completely different life. You are living on the subcontinent of India. You are living in the United States. You are living as an ancient Mayan shaman. You are living as a person that doesn't live on this planet and lives in another place millions of years from now. All of those lives are your life. So we are now doing what I call expanding our identity. When you dilate your sense of self, you say, I am myself, I'm me, I'm the person that is the interior of this epidermis, but I'm more than just the interior of this epidermis. I'm also this planet, I'm the planetary structure upon which I live, and I'm also this star. I'm an emanation from this star, the consciousness that made these timelines. And when you dilate your consciousness enough, you dilate to the point of being unity consciousness, where you say, I am the creator. I created all of these possibilities, and then I came here in order to occupy it and experience all of these possibilities. And P.S., that thought that I just described right there, that thought is the completion of the circuit. Like in electrical wiring, when we speak about making a full circuit, like wires that touch and the energy moves completely through the entire circuit of the wires. Well, your life is like a circuit where you have emanated from the source and coalesced into the physical realm, and then you are going to emanate back to the source. And when you return to the source, or the destination at this point, you complete the circuit. And that experience is called ascension. It means that you have focused your awareness away from the flowing membrane of death and, like with laser-like accuracy, maintained your awareness on the path of least likelihood. This is the only energetic pathway or timeline that allows you to exit this level of reality. Just like Bill Murray graduating from Groundhog's Day and finally waking up on the next day where he can make new choices and have new things happen. So it is not the end of life at all. Ascension does not mean that your life ends. It does not mean the end of your corporeal existence. It means a redefinition of your corporeal existence, because you will not be in the same realm that you were in. You will be in a new realm that is a higher frequency realm. Just like I take this note, this C, and I turn it into this C by changing its frequency. I didn't move the physical piano in space. Your body is going to change its frequency from here to here, even though you don't have to change your location in space. The planet is changing her frequency from here to here. So this is like saying, if you are a little cell on the skin of a giant being that is raising its frequency from this level to this level, then if you want to be on board for the ride, you're going to have to raise your frequency up to this level too. And this is the same of all of the cells of each of our individual bodies. Ascension means aligning your belief system and your thoughts and your actions and what you do with your life with that path of least likelihood. So if you, as a personal, individual person, are saying, I am going to smoke tobacco and reduce my vitality and create diseases within myself, that's going from this level of vibration even to a lower level of vibration. That's so instead of going from here to here, you're going from here to here. But Earth is going from here to here. So if you are going in this direction by smoking tobacco, Earth is going in the opposite direction. And you, at a certain point, are not going to be able to occupy the Earth of this frequency. This is said with no judgment and with total love. If you smoke tobacco, really go through the process of quitting, because it literally is like putting things that make friction on the train tracks of your life. Tobacco slows down your vitality, slows down your energy centers, and literally makes you die faster or have less access to life force energy. And I use it because it is such a clear example of a substance that humans don't have to ingest but voluntarily ingest that reduces their the extension of their life. So, and we can go into all of the emotional reasons as to why people smoke tobacco, and it has to do with the negative emotional energy beings that feed off of people. Only have a few minutes left for the end of this broadcast, and I don't want to get too much into tangents, so I'll talk about that another time. I'm speaking about the I Am God circuit, which is that realization that happens, the interior experience of what happens when you reconnect with Source is you think the thought and embody the truth of the thought, quote unquote, I am God. That is what you and all of us experience and the planet experience when we connect with Source. And this is what planetary ascension is. This is all going to happen concurrently. So at the same time that you as an individual are having this profound moment of awakening where you realize that you as an individual are God, all of the cells of your body, which, by the way, each have their own innate divine connection. It is called the nucleus, and it is where the DNA resides. DNA is the bridge of light between the physical, cellular, and the non-physical, non-cellular aspects of self. All of the cells of your body also have that profound realization at the same moment. I am God. And the planet upon which you are standing has the same profound realization. I am God. Along with all the other organisms that are on that planet. Every probiotic gut bacterium and every blade of grass and every giant redwood tree on the planet thinks and realizes at the same time, I am God. And the star that emanated all of these possibilities and all of these photons and all of this physical matter realizes, I am God. And the entire stellar network that that star is connected to has always known that it is God. It all thinks in concert, I am God. When I said before that we are instruments in a symphony, this is what the symphony is playing. This is the concerto. The concerto is called I Am God. And up until this point, like for the past 10 or 12,000 years, humanity's instrument has been out of tune and has been not singing and playing the deep, profound knowledge that I am God. It's been playing a different song, which says, God is something outside of me. God is some man in the sky. God is named Jehovah, or God is named Ahura Mazda, or God is named, something else other than John Smith from Petaluma. And that idea of externalizing the divine was the foundation of the change, the diminishing of the genetic code, basically taking humanity away from that primary piece of information that each one of us is God. And that, of course, when we combine our consciousness, we are the totality. We are the mosaic of consciousness that makes up divinity. So this is what we were designed for. This is the culture that we came from in terms of the world of Atlantis. And this is the culture that we are returning to. So people think about ascension and planetary ascension and what will happen. Will we have a planet? You will have a planet, just like you will have a body. Again, because people are taking it very literally and they think you're going to be floating upwards and then live in the clouds. No, not going to live in the clouds. That is a metaphor for your human mind to understand. You're going to live in a world of pure consciousness. In the same way that a dream, like a lucid dream or an astral projection session, is an experience of pure consciousness. However, people in this time and place, they think it is less real, astral experiences or dream experiences as being less real than the physical realm. And the world that we are coming into, where we live in this realm of pure consciousness, it will not be less real, or let's say less stable. In reality, if I put my piano on a table and I walk away, my piano stays on the table. It doesn't float away or go somewhere else or disappear. And when I go back there the next day, the piano is still there. This is the consistency of the physical reality. And if your piano magically disappears, we say either it, quote unquote, magically disappeared, it was not explainable according to rationality, or you think, wait a minute, am I in a dream? Am I going crazy? I question my sanity. So these are the rules by which we understand the physical reality. We are going to live according to new rules. We will live in a reality that might very well have pianos or piano keyboards and anthropomorphic bodies with which to play them. However, it will be a world which operates according to new rules. And the material of this new world will be much less static and much more easily changed, and the interior realm, your realm of your dreams, will be much more consistent and real. So it is the end of this broadcast, but let's just leave it there, imagining a dream that is so real that it's as real as reality. This is the realm that we are moving into as we give birth to a new dimension. It is the combination of spirit plus matter. That is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Thank you for being with me on the journey.